I am the heir to the Wang Group. In order to marry my first love, the wedding was arranged in the most extravagant and grand manner. All the influential figures in the city were invited. However, no one expected that during the wedding procession, my future mother-in-law suddenly demanded an additional 3 million as a dowry to pay off my brother-in-law's gambling debts. Just as everyone thought I would give in to save face, the next moment, I turned around and handed the bouquet in my hand to the bridesmaid behind me. I asked, "Willow, will you marry me?" Under the surprised gaze of my mother-in-law, fiancé, and brother-in-law, she smiled, took the bouquet, and said, "I will." Chapter 1. My future mother-in-law, with a smile on her face, blocked the wedding room door and said, "George, your family can afford this 3 million. We just want to see your attitude." My brother-in-law crossed his arms, the layers of fat on his neck shaking as he spoke. "Brother-in-law, hurry up and pay. The people over there are already demanding their money." My mother-in-law quickly slapped him and gave him a look to silence him. I could already guess. My brother-in-law had probably gambled again last night and lost a lot. Taking a deep breath and remembering how my fiancée had teary eyes and begged me to help her escape this family, I finally calmed down. My fiancée is a fragile yet strong girl. I met her at a dinner party where a fat man had shoved a stack of red bills at her, asking her to stay and drink with him. My fiancée bit her lip, her eyes red, shaking her head stubbornly, saying that no matter how desperate she was for money, she would never do such a thing. The man, enraged, threw the money at her face, and the sharp paper cut her cheek. I stepped in. People knew I was from the Panda Group, so they gave me some respect. My fiancée blushed and thanked me, grateful. I felt sorry for her. In today's world, it's rare to find someone who remains pure and doesn't bow down to money, especially when I later learned she came from a family that valued sons over daughters. I wanted to rescue her from this hellish situation. I calmed myself and spoke to my mother-in-law in a gentle tone. "Mrs. Liu, this wedding has already cost a lot, and there's an 880,000 dowry. Our family's finances are tight right now, and it's really hard to come up with an extra 3 million at once. How about we get married first, and then we can discuss the rest later?" My brother-in-law suddenly cursed. "Go to hell. After marrying my sister, where are we supposed to get the money?" I frowned. My mother-in-law quickly stopped him, forcing a dry laugh. "I always said, the wedding shouldn't be too extravagant. Look at this. What we spent on the wedding could have been given directly to us. My family runs a leading company in the city, and I'm the only child. How could the wedding be done carelessly? Moreover, the money spent on the wedding was not going to be handed over to them without reason." I said, "Can you open the door first? I want to know what Maria thinks." Maria definitely wouldn't want me to pay such a sky-high dowry. My mother-in-law pursed her lips and said that she, as Maria's mother, could take full responsibility for the wedding, but only after I paid the 3 million would she open the door. The groomsmen behind me were silent. David, one of the groomsmen, nudged me and whispered in my ear, "To open the door, it's 3 million. Later, there will also be wedding shoes and red envelope for addressing parents. Who knows how much more they'll ask for. What are you going to do, brother? If you can't gather the money, I can borrow some from my dad for you." I shook my head and glanced at the bedroom door lock, which could be opened from the inside. I immediately called out, "Maria, I'm outside. If you're willing to marry me, please open the door." Hearing me calling his sister, my brother-in-law panicked and charged at us like a big meatball. The groomsmen and my brother-in-law jostled with each other. Click. The door opened, but the person behind the door wasn't Maria. Chapter 2. My friend and bridesmaid stuck her head out with a grin and said, "I've been a cop my whole life, but this is the first time I've gone undercover. George, hurry up and get in. They won't let me open the door, but I've done you a huge favor." The groomsmen and I rushed in, but my mother-in-law, standing off to the side, looked displeased as she watched the bridesmaid open the door. The bridesmaid was my childhood friend, Willow. My fiancé's family had such poor relations that they couldn't even find enough bridesmaids as the wedding day approached. So, I had no choice but to let my childhood friend, who was on break, step in. I rushed into the room and asked Maria if she wanted to leave with me. If she did, she could escape her family's patriarchal grip. Maria's eyes darted away, and after a moment of silence, she said, "Have you gathered the 3 million? Her words hit me like a bucket of cold water, drenching me from head to toe. My mother-in-law also pushed her way in, casting a displeased glance at Willow for opening the door, and then, smugly, she looked at me and said, "My daughter always listens to me. If you want to marry her, call your parents and get the other 3 million, or you'll miss the lucky hour." Willow, hearing my mother-in-law's words, was stunned. She couldn't help but speak up. 3 million for a dowry? That's a sky-high dowry." David immediately stopped Willow, signaling her to stay quiet. Willow, clearly upset, stood behind me. The room fell silent, everyone waiting for my reaction. I looked at my fiancé's face and asked her, "Is this what you think too? If I can't come up with the money, you won't marry me?" Maria's eyes reddened again, and she said, I want to marry you, but, George, my brother lost 3 million last night. Without this money, they'll cut off his hands. I'm sorry, but he's my brother, and I can't just ignore him. I stared at her coldly and said, if you were already married to me, and your brother lost a few more million, would you still expect me to pay off his debts? Before Maria could answer, my brother-in-law jumped in. Of course, she'll always be my sister. You think marrying her means she's sold to your family? Of course, she'll take care of me. My fiancé frowned but didn't argue. I realized then that she had been deceiving me all along. She promised me that if I married her, I would be rescuing her from a family that valued sons over daughters, and she would sever ties with them and never pay her gambling brother's debts again. The truth was, she wouldn't stop paying her brother's debts, she would just shift the burden onto me. My parents called, asking where I was, since the lucky time was fast approaching. Hearing my parents call, my mother-in-law looked pleased, glanced at the time, and smiled. George, I'm not being unreasonable. The lucky time is almost here. Don't miss it. How about this? You can just write a promissory note for the extra 3 million. My fiancé looked at me with hopeful eyes and said, darling, if you write the promissory note, we can get married. Willow, furious, was about to say something but was quickly pushed back by David. I heard David whisper from behind me, don't cause trouble, ancestor. Willow muttered under her breath, calling David a jerk, saying George was being bullied, and David wasn't helping. I turned to see Willow's eyes red with frustration. Chapter 3. I picked up the bouquet, turned around, and knelt down on one knee. Willow, will you marry me? Willow froze. I winked at her, and she immediately understood. Willow pretended to be overjoyed, looking at me with exaggerated starry eyes and said, I will. My groomsmen cheered in unison, playing along with us. My mother-in-law was the first to snap back to reality. She rushed over to grab my arm, smiling obsequiously and said, George, I was just kidding. You don't need to add the dowry. Maria, stumbling in her heavy wedding gown, barefoot, ran to my side. With tears in her eyes, she looked at me and said, George, are you going to leave me? Every time I saw her looking so pitiful, I used to soften. I would feel sympathy for her, but this time, I only felt disgusted. I pushed her hand away and said, I gave you a chance. You asked me to save you. I'm sorry, but your family is a swamp. I can't save you. Don't contact me again. After saying that, I grabbed Willow's hand and turned to leave. My brother-in-law, blocking the door, stood like a solid wall in front of us. He shouted, my sister is your woman. You have to take responsibility. I coldly looked at him and said, I never touched your sister. She's not mine anymore. I broke up with her. I had always cared for Maria. Until marriage, I was determined not to touch her. My brother-in-law started throwing a tantrum, blocking the door and refusing to let us out. He yelled, well, if you broke up with my sister, you still have to pay for the breakup compensation. What? She's been with you all this time for free. You can't just say you didn't touch her. Pay up. Willow, tying up her hair, said, let me handle this. I've never liked this guy. David and I quietly covered our eyes. Willow was the champion of all brawls. After several screams, David and I opened our eyes. My brother-in-law was now lying on the floor. My mother-in-law screamed and threw herself onto my brother-in-law, cursing us with the foulest words. Maria, furious and humiliated, shouted behind me, George, you're not a man. You're so unreliable. You promised to marry me, and now you're turning your back over something as small as a dowry. George, you're such a jerk, a total jerk. I couldn't be bothered to listen to her anymore. Her words and actions left me cold. I stepped over my brother-in-law and into the wedding car with my groomsmen. On the way to the car, I felt utterly exhausted. Maria was my first love. I had truly loved her. I even fought with my parents for a long time, and only after they finally agreed did we proceed with this wedding. David, driving, noticed I had my eyes shut and was silent for a long time. Unable to resist, he asked, George, what about the wedding? He almost made me forget. I quickly called my parents. My mom answered, hey, son, where are you? Hurry up and come here, I replied. Mom, cancel the wedding. I'm sorry. I should have listened to you from the start. My parents were silent for a few seconds. They must have guessed what happened and comforted me. They said it was better to cancel the wedding than to regret it later. They told me this wedding could just be a meal with family and friends. After hanging up, Maria bombarded me with calls and messages, saying she regretted everything. Her mom and brother had pressured her, and if she didn't go along with them, they wouldn't let her be with me. She kept begging me to come back and pick her up. I sent her a message, it's over. Maria flooded my phone with messages. She wrote, you promised to protect me forever. You said you'd be my hero. You said I was your precious rose. Are you really going to give up on our love? George, don't you love me anymore? I smiled bitterly when I read her messages, then turned off my phone. Chapter 4. I sat in my office, lost in thought, reflecting on how I had ended up in this mess over the years. where I had alienated everyone just to marry Maria. Yesterday's wedding banquet had turned into a joke, and some of my friends and family had advised me to just endure it for now, to avoid embarrassment. But I feared that the longer I stayed, the more trouble would come. Her family would likely bring countless issues in the future. Suddenly, a commotion broke my thoughts as Maria and her secretary barged into the office, shoving each other. The secretary quickly apologized. "Sorry, Chairman Wang. I couldn't stop Miss Maria." I waved my hand, signaling for the secretary to leave. Leaning back in my chair, I asked Maria what she wanted. Maria pouted, looking wronged, with tears in her eyes as she crouched in front of me and coquettishly said, "I'm sorry. Yesterday, it was all my mom's fault. She said if I didn't do what she told me, she wouldn't let us get married." "Honey, I still love you. Honey, don't be angry. Please forgive me. I only felt disgusted," I said. "Stop calling me honey. We've broken up. From now on, you go your way, and I'll go mine." She trembled and said, "George, I know you're angry. You're mad because I played along with Willow yesterday. I know you're not with her. How could you like such a fierce woman? She even hits people." I sighed and replied, "Yes, I'm not with Willow, but what right do you have to talk about her?" Maria's face turned pale and red in turns, and she asked, "George, do you still love me?" This question again. All these years with Maria, whenever I didn't do things exactly as she wanted, she would start asking, "Do you still love me?" I was so fed up with it. I poked her shoulder and shouted, "Whether I love you or not, you should ask yourself. I've fought with my parents for years just to marry you. You wanted a dowry of 880,000. Fine. My parents didn't want to pay, so I went out and earned it myself. How many nights did I stay up late working? You don't know. How many drinks did I have to endure with others? You don't know. I worked through several all-nighters, almost dying from exhaustion. My parents only gave in because they were worried about me. They agreed to the dowry, to the villa, everything. But you and your mom and brother just casually ask for another 3 million. Sure, my family can afford it, but that doesn't mean we're made of money. You can't just take advantage of me because I like you." My emotions were running high, and as I said this, I couldn't help but feel my eyes redden. Maria still looked at me with a pitiful, pouty face. She was always like this, never seeing her own problems, always placing herself as the victim. In her mind, I was supposed to always accommodate her. Her reaction suddenly made me realize Maria and her family would never change. I took a deep breath to calm myself and said coldly, "All right, I have nothing more to say to you. From now on, let's stay out of each other's lives. Never show up in front of me again. Please leave." Maria refused to leave. She suddenly knelt in front of me, choking on her words. "George, for the sake of all these years, I'm not asking you to marry me again, but can you lend me 3 million? If I don't get it, my brother really will have his hand chopped off. Give me the 3 million, and I'll do anything you want." As she said this, she started to undress, revealing her white shoulders. I stared at her, dumbfounded, feeling like a stranger to her. She seemed nothing like the fragile yet strong girl I had once known. Over the years, I had pitied her, and to take responsibility for her, I had been patient, even resisting the final step with her. I would rather suffer myself than push her. And now, she was casually undressing herself. "Get out," I said, picking up the phone. "Secretary, come in. There are cameras in the office. If you're thinking about accusing me of something, forget it," I said as I lit a cigarette and stood by the window, staring at the traffic below. Maria, feeling wronged, got up and dressed herself. I asked, "Are you leaving on your own? Or should I have someone throw you out?" She said, "George, can't we go back to the way things were?" I replied, "No." I took a deep drag of the cigarette, the smoke filling my lungs before it slowly drifted up. The secretary knocked outside the door. "Chairman Wang, may I come in?" Maria, trying to save face in front of others, quickly fixed her clothes, grabbed her bag, opened the door, and walked out. Chapter 5. As soon as I finished work and arrived at the parking lot, I saw Maria's mother standing next to my car. With an arrogant expression, she spoke up. "George, you have an attitude problem. If you really wanted to marry Maria, you should have come begging me long ago. If you could just beg us a little, we might consider forgiving you." I ignored her. Opening the car door, she snorted coldly, saying, "If you're going to keep up this attitude, then I'll start arranging blind dates for Maria. Don't regret it." I couldn't understand why her family was so confident about everything. Why did they think I would continue chasing after them like some dog forever? I didn't want to say a word to her. I just got into the car and slammed the accelerator, driving off. Maria's mother stumbled back as the car zoomed away. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw her brother emerge from some corner. The two of them were looking at the back of my car, seemingly discussing something. I quickly tapped on my phone and found the property manager's number. I asked, "Can anyone just walk into the parking lot now? Handle this. From now on, neither my ex-girlfriend nor her family is allowed anywhere near our company." Understood, Chairman Wang. The next day, on my way to the office, Maria's mother suddenly dashed out from somewhere and threw herself in front of my car. Fortunately, my car had an automatic obstacle avoidance function, and with an emergency brake, I barely missed her. I got out of the car in a fury, shouting, "Are you trying to die? Are you planning to sacrifice your life to pay off your son's gambling debts? Are you trying to frame me?" Maria's family had constantly lowered their status in my eyes, and I couldn't help but think the worst of them. Her mother's attitude was completely different from yesterday. She was holding a lunchbox and smiling obsequiously. "Son-in-law, you're overthinking things. Yesterday, I saw that you looked a little worn out, so I made some chicken soup for you. Try it. It's still hot." Looking at her forced smile, with crow's feet and a double chin, I felt disgusted. When people offer too much kindness for no reason, it's either deceit or manipulation. Gritting my teeth, I said, "Get away from my car. If you bother me again, I'll call the police." She stubbornly lay across the hood of my car, preventing me from driving off. She said, "George, I'm begging you, please give Maria another chance. She's been crying at home all day. Maria really does love you." Where was this concern before? When I went to pick her up for the wedding, she didn't have this attitude. I stepped on the reverse gear and hit the gas pedal. She grabbed the lunchbox and chased after my car. I drove around her and, as soon as I got back to the office, the first thing I did was switch cars to avoid any further harassment from Maria's family. Chapter 6. After I kicked Maria out of my office that day, I didn't hear from her again. David suddenly contacted me, looking all mysterious, claiming he had a huge secret to share with me. "George, this is a really big secret. Do you want to hear it? For just 998 yuan, I'll tell you everything." I wasn't in the mood and couldn't stand David's annoying attitude, so I said, "No need. Keep your secret to yourself." David, unable to get what he wanted, paused awkwardly. I knew exactly how he worked. Sure enough, David grabbed my arm and said, "Forget 998. How about 98? I rolled my eyes and said, "No need. Just let it remain a secret forever." Seeing I was about to leave, David hurriedly grabbed me and gritted his teeth. "Don't go. I'll tell you, your little brother, because he couldn't pay back the money, had one of his fingers chopped off." I asked. "That's it," he replied. "Isn't that enough to vent your anger? He made things difficult for us during the wedding procession." I sneered, about to walk away when David grabbed me again and said, "Come on, I'll take you somewhere." Without waiting for me to respond, David dragged me to a dinner party. I asked, "What am I doing here?" Just as I spoke, I saw Maria again. She was standing next to that fat man who had harassed her when we first met, with his arm around her slim waist. I felt a bit confused but didn't show it. After all, there was no longer anything between us. When Maria saw me, her face momentarily showed panic. Then she pretended not to recognize me. During the dinner, the fat man kept pushing Maria to drink for him. At first, she obediently drank, but as time passed, she couldn't handle the alcohol, and I saw her throw me a pleading look. I ignored it. When I helped her before, it was because I saw her couldn't resist the harassment, but now she was voluntarily at this dinner as an accessory. The fat man started touching Maria's thigh and gave it a hard slap, laughing as he looked at me and said, "Bro, I remember you. Back then, you were arguing with me over Maria." He took a puff of his cigar and said leisurely, "I know you're the heir to the Panda Group, so I didn't take it too seriously, but your taste is awful." He seemed to remember something and burst into laughter, saying, "A woman like her, just throw a bit of money and she'll go with you. You still wanted to marry her. Everyone in our little circle has had her, and you still want to take the plunge. You're still young." His words made the atmosphere around the table awkward. Maria looked like she was enduring something and wanted to refute him but didn't dare speak out, giving me another pleading look. I gave David a glance, and he immediately understood, acting like he was familiar with the fat man, putting an arm around him, saying that he had drunk too much and was talking nonsense. I got up to go to the restroom. After all, Maria had once been the woman I loved, someone I treated as precious, yet now she was being humiliated like this. I looked at myself in the mirror, not sure whether I was the foolish one or if Maria was the tragic one. Maria suddenly appeared behind me, her eyes brimming with tears, saying, "George, I'm not like he said. I just need the money." I had no choice, I replied. "It's none of my business." I washed my hands and was about to walk past her. Maria grabbed my sleeve, gritting her teeth and saying, "George, how can you be so heartless? If you had just lent me 3 million, would I have ended up like this? Would my brother have lost a finger?" I frowned and said, "I didn't make your brother gamble, nor did I make you come here to drink." I forcefully yanked my arm away from her and continued, "Why are you blaming me for the things you and your family have done wrong? I didn't go after your family, but don't think I couldn't have. I could crush you and your family easily. I'm not dealing with you out of respect for the past, so get lost. Don't make me do something I'll regret." Hearing my words, Maria's tears started flowing again, and she bit her lip tightly. I said, actually, the easiest way to solve everything is for you to cut ties with your family. Once you do that, all your problems will be solved. Your brother is just a bottomless pit. Out of kindness, I gave her a last piece of advice. Considering we had once been together, Maria cried. But he's still my little brother. She was hopeless, willingly becoming the source of support for a gambling addict brother. I pushed her aside and walked out of the hotel, sending David a message. I'm heading back. Late at night, as I was about to fall asleep, David called me. He hesitated, rambling on, and I was so tired I almost hung up. It wasn't until he finally said, "Bro, I have to tell you something." "Brace yourself," I replied. "Go ahead." He sighed and said, "You might have been tricked." I went and asked around in that fat guy's circle. You know, those nouveau riche, greasy uncles who play around. Maria has always been good at pretending to be a little innocent flower, specifically targeting those kinds of men. She accidentally snagged you. Hearing me stay silent, he quickly added, "But it's okay, bro. You cut your losses in time. Just think of it like stepping in dog poop." I said, "It's fine. It's already over." He replied, "Good. Just don't cry under the covers alone at night." After a few jokes, I hung up the phone and silently pulled the blanket over my head. I felt dirty. So dirty. At least I never touched her. Chapter 7. The fat man who had once harassed Maria suddenly contacted me. Our two companies were about to collaborate on a project, and he told me that men should focus on their careers and not let Maria get in the way of our cooperation. He offered this dinner as an apology. After several attempts to set up a meeting, I reluctantly agreed to have dinner with him. The fat man was surrounded by a group of women. He took a sip of tea, swirled it around in his mouth, then turned and spit it into one of the women's wine glass. He casually waved me to choose one of them and slapped a woman in a white bodycon dress on the back, saying, "Go and serve Chairman Wong." I quickly waved my hands in embarrassment and said, "Let's talk business. Can you have them leave first?" The fat man laughed heartily. I didn't expect Chairman Wong to be so innocent. He poured me a drink, but I declined. He said, "Chairman Wong, if you don't drink, it means you haven't forgiven me. Here's the deal. You drink this glass, and I'll give you a bit more of the project." I raised my glass to him and drank it in front of him, turning the glass upside down to show I had finished it. The fat man looked at me with a gradually malicious smile. I realized the drink was tampered with as I collapsed in my seat. He whispered in my ear with a sinister laugh, "Daring to take the project from me? You're out of your depth. This project is already mine." Then he yelled out, "Come in. We're done here." Click-clack. The sound of high heels grew closer. He said, "Let's go. The room's ready. Stick to the plan and hurry up. Be careful. His people might catch on." Two of them stumbled as they dragged me upstairs to the hotel room. The fat man said, "Hurry up and strip." Then I heard Maria's voice, "Can you leave first?" The fat man responded, "What are you pretending for? What haven't I seen?" Maria stopped talking, and only the sound of clothes rustling filled the room. The fat man muttered a few filthy words from the side. I opened my eyes, shouted angrily, "What the hell are you doing?" The fat man smiled wickedly, raised his phone, and said, "What am I doing? The great George, chairman of Panda Group, forcing a good woman. Do you know what kind of damage this would do to your company if these photos get out?" I asked. "You went through all this trouble to set me up. Just tell me what you want." He said, "It's simple. Give us $5 million, and you step out of the project. I'll take it all." Maria, naked, hid behind the fat man, too scared to look at me. I said, "You're extorting me." He laughed. "Chairman Wong, don't make it sound so ugly. We're just doing business here." I asked, "Aren't you afraid I'll report this to the police?" The fat man shrugged indifferently, took out my phone, and played with it in his hand, saying, "The phone's in my possession. How are you going to call the police? Once this is done, do you have any evidence?" I scoffed and clapped my hands. David, who had been lurking outside, kicked open the door with a few of his men. Maria frantically grabbed the clothes on the floor and covered herself up. I pointed to the hidden button camera on my shirt and said, "You think I'd trust you that much? No preparation. You think I'd come to dinner unprepared?" The fat man and Maria looked shocked as they saw the camera. "You didn't drink that glass." The fat man stammered. I said, "We're all old foxes at the drinking table. Swapping drinks and pouring wine isn't that hard for me. Now, what's it going to be? Public or private?" The fat man cursed under his breath, realizing he was done for. He said, "I've spent my whole life playing with eagles. Didn't expect to be pecked in the eye by one. I'm out of the project." I nodded, signaling him to leave. Without a word, the fat man dropped Maria and quickly ran off. Once the fat man was gone, Maria, seeing that no one was supporting her, knelt in front of me. She said, "George, I'm sorry." I rubbed my temples and said, "Don't say anything useless. I warned you last time. I don't want to deal with your family. I don't want to see you again. Just tell me, your brother's legs or arms. Choose one." Maria's eyes widened in shock, tears and snot flowing as she sobbed, No, he's my brother. George, please, for the sake of all the years we spent together, let me go this time. I nodded to David and his men, signaling them to listen carefully. I said, okay, here's your last chance. Maria was overwhelmed with gratitude, crawling out of the room. In reality, I was just scaring her. I would never engage in criminal activities. Chapter 8. As time gradually returned to normal, my family began pressuring me about marriage and introduced me to potential matches. Finally, it was the weekend, and I didn't want to go home. I dragged David out to have tea with me. David looked at the floating tea leaves in his cup and said, "Big brother, you called me out, but you haven't said a word. We can't just sit here doing nothing, right? A friend of mine just opened a private club. Do you want to go check it out?" I thought about it for a moment. It could help pass the time, so I agreed. Just as we were about to head out, my phone suddenly rang. I answered the call. It was that family causing trouble again. The police asked me to come help them rescue a hostage. My former brother-in-law, Marco, had been pushed to his limits by loan sharks and was now holding a knife to his sister Maria's neck, threatening the police to give him $5 million. The police refused, and Marco then threatened to kill Maria unless I came to speak with him. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Maria's life or death wasn't my concern. They were just a bunch of sibling quarrels. So I said, "Sorry, I have no relation to his family. Can I refuse to go?" The police seemed a bit hesitant but insisted that I should come. They said Marco was emotionally unstable and might do something irrational to the hostage. Reluctantly, I agreed to cooperate with them and headed to my ex-mother-in-law's house. The area was completely sealed off, and the police wouldn't let me inside for my safety. They only allowed me to stay outside the window and communicate with Marco. Marco was agitated, the kitchen knife pressed firmly against Maria's neck, leaving several bloody streaks on her skin. Maria's face was filled with terror. My ex-mother-in-law stood next to me, crying and shouting for her son to calm down, while also demanding the police gather money to save her daughter. Marco stood in the corner, just out of view of the window. Outside, snipers had already taken their positions, and a middle-aged police officer was trying to persuade Marco not to do anything rash. Maria, her face streaked with tears and snot, was standing in a puddle of yellow liquid. She saw me and got excited, wanting to say something but not daring to speak. The knife was pressed tightly against her neck. Marco hid behind Maria, her small frame no match for his larger body. He only kept his head hidden behind her. He peeked out at me, then pulled his head back, shouting, "George, your family is so rich. You can't give me $5 million. Are all you rich people so cold-blooded? Can't you help someone out?" My ex-mother-in-law dropped to her knees in front of me, begging, "Son-in-law, please, give him the money. He's still just a kid. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's been pushed to the edge. Please, have mercy and save him. You're the only one who can save our family now." The middle-aged police officer helped her to her feet, trying to calm her down. I didn't say I'd help him or not. I just stood there coldly, watching their family drama unfold. I suspected this was another one of their schemes to get money, but this time the police had been involved. I silently wondered what would happen next. If I gave him the money, Marco would likely ask for an escape vehicle. But with the current police force and technology, he wouldn't be able to escape. If I didn't give him the money, would he really kill his sister? Marco, seeing I wasn't saying anything, began to break down, crying. "I've been forced into a corner. They already chopped off one of my fingers. They said if I don't pay them back, they'll cut off one of my legs. If I can't pay the money, I might as well die with her." When I still didn't respond, his anger flared, and he shouted, "Do you think I want to use my sister as a hostage? George, I hate you the most. I was going to kill your parents and take your family's wealth, but..." He choked up. "You guys have such good security. I didn't even have a chance to get close to your parents. Why are some people born with everything while others are born with nothing?" Maria's neck wound deepened, and she struggled in pain. Marco's face twisted with rage as he shouted, "If I'm going to die, I'll drag you down with me." He then threw the kitchen knife at me. The knife flew toward my face, but I managed to dodge just in time. A gunshot rang out. Marco, having thrown the knife, revealed himself just in time for a sniper's bullet to strike him. Maria collapsed to the ground. My ex-mother-in-law froze for a moment, then screamed and rushed inside, throwing herself on top of Marco, trying to pull him up, screaming my name. Marco's mouth foamed with blood, and the floor was soaked with it. The police and paramedics rushed in, pulling my ex-mother-in-law aside to treat Marco and Maria. In a frenzy, my ex-mother-in-law lunged at me, crying out, "All you had to do was agree to give him the money. Why didn't you agree? Why didn't you just give him the money? It's your fault my son is dead." The middle-aged officer tried to stop her, but he couldn't hold her back. I put my arms up to shield my head and kicked her away. She went wild, throwing herself at the police officers, grabbing and hitting them, shouting that they had killed her son. A few officers rushed in and restrained her. Chapter 9. After Marco went to prison, Maria and my ex-mother-in-law disappeared. and I didn't hear anything from them. One day, when Willow came over during her break to hang out with us, she suddenly confessed her feelings to me. I agreed. My parents and Willow's parents were both very enthusiastic about arranging our wedding. After Willow and her family left, my parents called me into the study and said they had something to tell me. My dad asked, "Have you seen your ex-girlfriend's mom recently?" I was a bit puzzled by the sudden question and shook my head, saying I hadn't seen her. My parents exchanged a look before my dad continued. "She's been hanging around our neighborhood lately. One time, she even tried to fake an accident with our car." My mom gave me a strange look and added, "And she was dressed so lightly for the winter. She was only wearing a thin coat and a dress. We live in the north, where it's well below freezing in winter, and everyone wears down jackets or fur coats. Who would stand outside in a dress? Could it be?" I glanced at my dad and thought to myself, those two really have their eyes on our family. They won't stop until they get something out of us, I said. "Just to be safe, Mom and Dad, you should move into the house in the southern city for a few days. It's been vacant for a while, and the formaldehyde has been aired out. Her son's in prison, and their family is completely insane. I'm worried she might do something to you guys." My parents agreed. As soon as I got home, I had my secretary keep an eye on my ex-mother-in-law's movements, just in case she really tried something. After all, she had nothing to lose. A few days later, my secretary came to report that after waiting at the entrance of our neighborhood for a few days, she hadn't seen our car and got bored, so she left. Recently, she stopped hanging around our neighborhood and started doing square dancing instead. With her bold dance moves and swaying skirt, she managed to hook an old, rich man. While dancing, she sprained her ankle and fell right into the old man's arms, making him feel some romantic stirrings. She swindled 200,000 yuan from him, and soon, his wife and children showed up at her door, beating her up in a fit of rage. My ex-mother-in-law gave up on any attempts to get money, but she was now desperate for her life. The old man's wife and daughter had no choice but to take her to court. As for what happened after that, I told my secretary not to worry about it anymore. That family would take care of her. Chapter 10. My marriage to Willow went smoothly. Relatives and friends all congratulated us, saying that good things come after many trials and that I had found true love. They praised Willow endlessly, calling her as beautiful as a flower, as graceful as a fallen goose, with beauty inside and out. I glanced at Willow, who insisted on wearing a police uniform for our wedding. 3 crows flew overhead. What did all these compliments have to do with Willow? She was almost too handsome, surpassing me in looks. All the female guests at the wedding were screaming and cheering, calling the bride so handsome, completely overshadowing my presence. One evening after the wedding, Willow was lying in my arms when she suddenly asked if I knew what Maria had been up to lately. I didn't take it seriously and casually replied, "No idea. Whatever she's doing, it's none of my business anymore." Willow sat up and said, "That's not what I meant. I overheard a colleague talking about a case today and realized it was related to her. After her brother went to prison, the loan sharks didn't let Maria off the hook. Her mom disappeared without a trace, so they captured Maria. They lied to her, saying if she didn't pay back the money, they'd have her brother killed in prison. But they couldn't even get to Marco in prison. They were just tricking her." Sadly, Maria believed them. To save her brother, she told the loan sharks she had a way to make big money and needed more time. She asked them to send her 2 people, to supervise her and help her out. Maria's plan was to lure several girls, imprison them, and force them to engage in prostitution while filming and uploading the videos online. She's facing charges for organizing prostitution and distributing obscene videos, which could land her a sentence of over 10 years. I was speechless after hearing Willow's words. Maria seemed like a complete stranger to me now, as though I had never known her. The years I spent with her felt like a dream. I said, "She chose her own path. There's nothing we can do about it. Let's sleep." From that point on, that family disappeared completely from my life. My childhood friend Willow had always been obsessed with some small-time internet celebrity. Not only had she given him millions of yuan in donations, but she had also been deceived by him into an affair and ended up pregnant. In the end, she was nearly killed in a domestic violence incident. In that critical moment, she called me for help. Without hesitation, I drove over 100 kilometers and contacted the police to rescue her. But to my shock, she is worried that the male streamer might be sentenced. She not only erased all the evidence but also falsely accused me of being the one who had swindled her for money, manipulated her into a sexual relationship, and caused her pregnancy and miscarriage. The internet celebrity even spread rumors about me during a live stream, calling me a scumbag and condemning my actions. As a result, under the outrage of the online public, I lost my job, my father died from a stroke due to the stress, and my mother, unable to bear the grief, drank pesticide. In a state of complete despair, I decided to act. While the internet celebrity and Willow were showing off their lovey-dovey moments on a live stream, I set a fire, intending to take them both down with me. Then, I opened my eyes and realized I had been reborn. Back to the moment I was on my way to rescue Willow. This time, I turned the car around. I thought to myself, better to destroy a temple than to destroy a marriage. The scumbag couple locked together. Chapter 1. Brother George, where are you? People outside are already kicking the door down. Woo. I'm so scared. Willow, my friend who grew up with me since childhood, kept sending messages urging me. No matter how urgent she seemed, I remained calm and untroubled. There was no other reason. Everything happening now, I had already experienced it in my past life. Willow and I had grown up together. When we were little, she would always follow closely behind me, calling out to Brother George. I treated her like a sister, taking care of her, cleaning up the messes she caused, driving away the bullies who harassed her, and remembering any good things or opportunities for her. The neighbors in our village would often joke that when we grew up, Willow would marry me. Throughout our lives, we had always been there for each other. Willow was used to immediately seeking my help whenever something happened. This time was no different. Recently, she became infatuated with an internet celebrity streamer named Makoto. Not only did she donate all the millions she received from her family's demolition compensation, but she also snuck out alone to meet this so-called idol. However, she didn't realize that this little streamer, who appeared respectable in his live streams, was actually a shameless troublemaker. He quickly grew close to Willow and even got her pregnant. Willow didn't see anything wrong with it. In fact, she enjoyed it until Makoto spent all the money he took from Willow, and after repeatedly failing to get more money from her, he revealed his true, ugly colors. He not only humiliated Willow daily but also violently abused her whenever she did something he didn't like. This time, Makoto got drunk and, fueled by alcohol, he assaulted Willow again, causing her to lose the baby. Unable to bear it any longer, Willow called me, begging me to rescue her. In my past life, when I received Willow's distress message, I didn't hesitate. I drove over 100 kilometers to Makoto's place, kicked open the door, and rescued Willow. Before rushing in, I had called the police just in case, but I didn't expect that Willow, blinded by her infatuation, feared that Makoto would face prison time. To clear his name, she not only destroyed all the evidence Makoto had against her but also insisted that I was the one who had forced her, causing her to become pregnant with my child and have a miscarriage. Then, she reached out online for help, allowing Makoto to receive assistance. Meanwhile, Makoto, trying to save himself, live-streamed claims that he was only trying to help Willow and that I, fearing exposure, had falsely reported him to tarnish his reputation. With all these false accusations and without any evidence, I was left speechless. In the end, I became the vilified scumbag. My father suffered a stroke from the stress and was sent to the ICU. The heavy medical bills crushed all the hope our family had. Unfortunately, my father couldn't be saved. My mother, overwhelmed by despair, drank pesticide. Because of my momentary kindness, my family was torn apart. At that time, Makoto and Willow, who were defaming me, had already reconciled sweetly and were flaunting their relationship online every day. In utter desperation, I stormed into their live stream, spilled a bunch of alcohol everywhere, and then ignited a fire. In the raging flames, I let out a chilling laugh. Like a vengeful spirit, I shouted, "Willow, didn't you say I abused you before? If I hadn't abused you, how could this have happened? Today, I'll make it up to you all at once. Let's go to the afterlife together." Makoto, you want to be famous, don't you? Well, today I'll make sure you truly burn bright. Amid the screams, the three of us turned to ashes. When I opened my eyes again, it was now. At this moment, I had already dialed the emergency number and was standing below the address Willow had provided. But this time, I wouldn't repeat the same mistakes. In the next second, I turned off my phone, made a U-turn, and drove straight home. Chapter 2. My mother asked me, "Aren't you going to look for Willow? Why did you come back so soon?" My mother looked at me with a surprised expression when she saw that I returned alone. I just stood there, staring at her, confused, until I finally reacted. Suddenly, I ran to hug my mother's slim body, and with a cracked voice, I said, "It's so good, we're all together, calm, and happy. How wonderful." My mother gently scolded me. "What's wrong with you, son? If our family is healthy and safe, of course, we'll live calmly and happily." I didn't tell her anything about my past life because, due to my naive kindness, I ended up causing my family to suffer a tragic death. I said, "My head hurts a little. I'm going to rest in my room for a while." She asked, "What's wrong with you? Should we go to the hospital? And Willow? Is Willow still trapped by that animal?" I smiled and replied, "Let her stay there. She seems quite content." After saying this, I went straight to my room. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, while my mind kept spinning. Heaven had given me a second chance, and I had to make the most of it. The images of my previous life kept appearing in my mind. Willow and the horrible face of the TV announcer constantly slid through my thoughts. I was getting more and more anxious, but I tried to focus and calm down. Just then, I heard someone knock on the door. As I approached the door, the noise from outside grew louder. Why were there suddenly so many people? I was confused. Then, a sharp voice reached my ears. Someone shouted, "George, get out here." It was Lou's mother's voice. In my previous life, she would always stand in front of my house, shouting, "Mi laman violadeer," and blaming my parents for not raising me well, accusing us of ruining her daughter and saying that we deserved to go to hell. I knew very well that her daughter had been defiled by the announcer, but to avoid losing face in front of the neighborhood, she preferred to blame me for everything. It was also because of her daily curses that my father had a stroke due to the stress, and ultimately died after being unable to be revived. The most ironic thing was that, as the guilty one, when she heard about my father's death, she didn't show any remorse and, with complete shamelessness, said, "Look, it was indeed your son who did something bad to my daughter. If it weren't for his immoral actions, how could she have received such a punishment and died so suddenly?" I couldn't help but admit that she was right. The most immoral thing I did was being weak and choosing to save Willow, which led to the tragedy of my family. Although I haven't gotten into that mess in this life, why is this old woman coming to my house again? With many doubts, I headed to the front door to see what was going on. When I reached the door, I hesitated for a moment, then took out my phone and turned it on to record, making sure it could capture the furious screams of Lou's mother, before calmly leaving the room. Chapter 3. When Lou's mother saw me coming out, she lunged at me like a madwoman, shouting, "Scoundrel, are you even human?" She turned around and loudly screamed at the curious neighbors, "Everyone, come look at this little beast." Willow was in danger and begged him for help, but he didn't even care. Now, he's back home, just sleeping. With that, she glared at me with bloodshot eyes and questioned, "How can you live with yourself after everything you and Willow went through? How can you betray her trust like this?" The neighbors didn't know the full story, and hearing that, they all frowned at me. In my previous life, I had suffered tremendously because of public opinion. This time, no matter what, I couldn't let it happen again. So, I raised my voice and retorted without hesitation, "I don't understand what you're talking about. Did I tell Willow to travel all the way to find that little streamer for a one-night stand? Did I make her pregnant with his child? She's the one who chose a man and got pregnant. Why should I deal with it? If I interfere in this family matter, what if she blames me for ruining her happiness later?" The crowd gasped in shock. Lou's mother's face turned from pink to red, then purple. She had intended to dump all the blame on me, but she didn't expect that the respectful George she used to know would publicly defy her today, and even lay out the entire story. In our small county, getting pregnant before marriage was already a disgrace, let alone the fact that she had to ask her childhood friend to clean up her daughter's mess, and her family had to come over to cause a scene. This was the kind of thing that shouldn't be aired in public. In an instant, the tide of public opinion turned, and the neighbors began whispering and pointing fingers at Willow's mother. She was furious and snapped, "Willow is still young. As her brother, you should look out for her. How can you let her grow up like this?" She sat on the ground, throwing a tantrum. Oh, my poor daughter. She trusted the wrong person. She thought the good brother she grew up with would help her, but she didn't know how bad people can be. They're just waiting to see her fail. My parents were honest and simple people, and they had never seen anything like this. They were stunned into silence. After a long pause, my mom rushed over to help her up and said, "Mrs. Lou, please get up. You shouldn't say such things. We've known Willow since she was little. How could we ever laugh at her?" George left early this morning in a hurry. He was feeling unwell and had a terrible headache. That's why he came back home. But Lou's mother wouldn't hear it. She snorted derisively and mocked, "Unwell? If you didn't want to help my daughter, just say so. Why make excuses? If it weren't for my daughter's luck, holding on until the police arrived, you'd still be sitting comfortably in your home." She glared at me and said with venom, "I'll tell you, if anything happens to my daughter, none of you will escape. I'll make you all pay with your lives." Then, she slapped my mother across the face. Chapter 4. I was seething with anger. I rushed forward and kicked her to the ground. Still not satisfied, I pinned her down and slapped her, shouting, "Old hag, do you have no shame? What does your daughter's problem have to do with me? And you say she held on until the police arrived. If I hadn't called the police, would they have come? Could your daughter have been saved? And instead of thanking me, you come here throwing a tantrum. You can ask around. I, George, only slap the elderly and the child. I may not be able to take on others, but dealing with you is easy." Lou's mother was dumbfounded, speechless. She looked around, realizing no one was coming to her defense. In frustration, she started slapping her thighs and wailing, "Oh, my poor daughter. You used to think George was a good guy, but look at what he's saying about you now. It's all my fault. I raised you too naive, and that's what got you into trouble, my poor daughter." This time, I didn't let her off the hook. I pulled out my phone and, in front of everyone, dialed the number. "Hello, is this the police station? Someone is causing trouble outside my house. Can you come over?" My address is. Before I could finish, the woman who had been throwing a fit earlier quickly scrambled to her feet. She gritted her teeth and said, "This isn't over." She shot me a fierce glare, then turned and walked away. My mom, still worried, grabbed my arm and said, "There are neighbors. Maybe we went a little too far. Lou's mother is just upset because her daughter's in trouble. We can understand that," I replied. "Upset? So just because she's upset, she gets to take it out on us?" I looked at my mom's swollen face, my heart aching for her. "It's because we've always been too easy to bully that she feels she can come over and cause trouble like this." "Mom, have you ever thought about it? If we let her spread these lies, what will people say about us? How will we hold our heads up in this town?" My mom was kind-hearted and always tried to avoid conflict. No matter who she clashed with, she would try to smooth things over, taking a step back. Now, I had to change her mindset little by little. I reminded her of a few past incidents, like the time when she went out with Lou's mother and Lou's mother lost her wallet. Without hesitation, Lou's mother demanded that my mom pay for it, arguing that since they were together, she was responsible for keeping an eye on the wallet. But if Lou's mother had gone out with someone else and lost her wallet, she would never have dared to make such a demand. And there was the time when my mom was looking at a piece of clothing, and Lou's mother snatched it right out of her hands. If it had been anyone else, she wouldn't have dared to do that. Such things had happened more than once. I said, "The more we try to be nice, the more they'll bully us." "Mom, think about it." My mom fell silent, lost in thought. I didn't expect her to change her perspective immediately after giving my dad, who was standing in the yard smoking, a nod. I turned and walked out the door. I didn't believe Willow and her family would back off just like that. To deal with the aftermath, I needed to find someone, a person from my previous life. Chapter 5. Anna asked, "Why should I team up with you? I've already gotten rid of that trash. There's no reason for me to make trouble for myself." I smiled. "He may not bother you now that he scammed money from someone else, but what will happen when he runs out of cash?" She fell silent. The little streamer who attracted Willow wasn't just some nobody. He was already gaining a bit of fame online, but the majority of that fame was due to his ex-girlfriend, Anna, sitting right in front of me. To help this little streamer rise, Anna had single-handedly planned his career and even invested her own money to market him. But when he started gaining some recognition, he didn't hesitate to cheat on her. That's when Anna realized she'd made a mistake and decided to break up with him. But the little streamer wasn't willing to let go of his cash cow, so he relentlessly pursued her, until Willow came along. Willow was much easier to manipulate than Anna. A few sweet words from him were enough to make her hand over all of her family's demolition compensation. As long as he gave her a glance with longing eyes, she would happily go to him. With this new, more gullible target, the little streamer temporarily stopped pestering Anna. But now that Willow's money was running out, would the little streamer have enough dignity to turn back to Anna and beg her for more? The answer was obvious. As I was talking to Anna, her phone suddenly rang. She glanced down at the screen and then, with a bitter smile, turned the phone towards me. "You really are a harbinger of bad news," she said. The message was from an unknown number, and it read, "Anna, it's Makoto. I miss you so much. I've been thinking about the times we spent together. How about we grab a meal sometime?" I had to admit, the speed of his actions was impressive. Anna swiftly blocked the number and said, "All right, I'll agree to your proposal, but only if you can promise to get Makoto locked up. Tell me, what do you need me to do?" Chapter 6. After finalizing the plan with Anna, I drove home, only to unexpectedly run into Willow at my doorstep. She looked pitiful as she said, "I know I've caused you a lot of trouble, George. I came to apologize." "I'm sorry, big brother." Willow's pale face really did look quite pitiful and heart-wrenching. But after living through one life already, I knew exactly what kind of filthy soul was hidden beneath that seemingly innocent face, and I wasn't going to fall for her act again. I replied, "It's fine. As long as your family doesn't go looking for trouble, I'll thank the heavens." Willow's expression froze, as though she didn't expect me to be so blunt. She said, "George, could you delete the chat records where I begged you for help? A lot of people's accounts have been hacked recently, and if my messages get leaked from your account, I won't be able to live with myself." I finally understood why she was here. In my previous life, I had saved her, but she took advantage of the confusion to steal my phone and wipe it clean. When she later slandered me, I couldn't find any evidence to counter her, and I had to let her smear me. In this life, I didn't save her, so she didn't have a chance to touch my phone. Now, she was here, trying to play the victim and convince me to delete the chat history. I casually waved my hand and said, "My phone broke a few days ago. I already threw it away." The funny part was that Willow, with her idiotic brain, actually believed me. Of course, this was normal. She didn't know that I had already lived through one life and still saw me as the naive, easily manipulated neighbor who would always do whatever she asked. When she heard that the chat history was gone, she let out a sigh of relief and said, "That's good. Now, Let's talk about compensation. How much are you planning to pay us? I was speechless. I asked. Compensation, she replied. Yes, and raised her voice. You caused so much trouble for Makoto and me. Don't you think you should pay up? I laughed. Did I force you to sleep with that little streamer? Or did I make you beg for help? Willow, how come I never realized you were this shameless? Willow's face remained unashamed as she questioned me with a righteous tone. Why are you being so unreasonable? Who told you to call the police? Don't you know how much trouble you caused Makoto? If I hadn't reacted quickly and claimed I was willing, his career would have been ruined. Don't you just love seeing others fail? I almost sneered out loud. I knew it would go exactly like this. This ungrateful little brat who cried and begged for help when she was beaten. But once she was saved, she quickly forgot the pain and started talking back to the person who helped her. In an instant, I felt some regret that I hadn't been reborn sooner. If I had been reborn before calling the police, I would have just turned off my phone and gone back to bed without a second thought. Who cares about her life? Seeing that I didn't respond, Willow thought I was feeling guilty and intimidated. So her arrogance grew. She said, "You need to bring out all the demolition compensation money from your family and give it to Makoto." I sneered and laughed lightly, and before she could react, I pushed her to the ground, stepped over her, and entered the house. This was the first time Willow had ever been treated like this by me. She was stunned and stood frozen for a moment, only getting up after a while to scream at me. "George, you're done for. When you're ruined and disgraced, don't regret it. I'll make you kneel in front of me," crying, handing over the money. In this life, just like the last one, Willow and Makoto chose the same path. They started streaming again, telling the same story. As the biggest villain in the whole ordeal, I had forced Willow to get pregnant, and then, to avoid responsibility, I pressured her into silence. Willow, as a helpless young girl, eventually had no choice but to turn to the internet for help. Makoto, the kind-hearted good guy, offered to help her, but I, worried the truth would come out, chose to slander him and call the police. People couldn't help but sympathize with the apparent victim, especially when they saw Willow crying on camera, claiming how her neighbor George had forced her and stolen all her money while threatening her to keep quiet. The sympathy from netizens flooded in, just like in my past life. Chapter 7. In my previous life, Willow and Makoto used the same method to push me into the abyss, but this time, things were completely different. In the past, I had no evidence. I had to repeatedly explain on camera that the child Willow miscarried was not mine and that I never took a single cent from her. But since I had no proof, no one believed me. This time, my phone still had everything preserved perfectly. Online public opinion is like a storm. Once the direction is set, it rushes toward the predetermined target irrationally, and no one cares about the truth anymore. Netizens, like passive bystanders, follow the trend and start shouting at what they believe to be the evil side, thinking they are upholding justice. This time, I was fully prepared. Willow and Makoto's first live stream garnered a great response. I had nothing but a few dry comments in the chat, explaining that it wasn't like that and she was lying, but I wasn't able to provide any solid rebuttal. This made Willow and Makoto feel confident in their victory. They even spent a lot of money on marketing and exposure, quickly gaining a lot of attention. I called Anna and asked, "Is it about time? This is the perfect moment to strike back. Once the public forms a fixed impression, it'll be hard to clear things up." But Anna simply laughed and said, "No rush. You should trust my professional skills." I did trust her, but this was a life or death matter. If my parents hadn't been affected yet, I would have already taken action. Willow's recent online scandal had stirred up a lot of noise, and even our neighbors who liked to go online had heard about it. Fortunately, Willow's mother had caused a scene at my house before, giving me the chance to publicly reveal that Willow had gotten pregnant by the streamer. Thanks to that, my reputation was mostly preserved. The neighbors even stepped up to defend me, criticizing Willow's family for their lack of gratitude. They said that Willow and I grew up together, yet she was still trying to slander me. But Lou's mother still stubbornly argued, "It's because we grew up together that we don't need to avoid this. So what if people talk? It won't hurt him. Besides, for all these years, George has been chasing after Willow. He's been trying to get close to her, but she didn't want him. If I let George marry our Willow, his mother would have to kneel before us and thank us. After all, it's only right for him to help his future wife." She said all this while my mother was standing nearby, overhearing everything. For years, my mom had always told me to maintain good relations with the neighbors, to take care of Willow, but now, she realized that instead of receiving gratitude from them, we were just taken for granted. When my mom found out I was planning to get revenge on Willow, she had tried to stop me, thinking of the young girl's reputation. After hearing Lou's mother's words, she looked like she had aged 10 years in an instant. My mom turned to me and said, "Forget it. Do what you want. I won't stop you anymore." If I hadn't been so indulgent with them, they wouldn't have latched onto our family. Chapter 8. Willow and Makoto's second live stream. Playing the victim. was a huge success. I clicked into their stores page and saw that the sales from just one night had reached nearly 1 million. Netizens were emotionally charged, pouring money into helping the poor girl they believed had been hurt by her childhood friend. As expected, Willow and Makoto tasted the sweetness of success. Eager to maximize their profits, they immediately announced that they would continue their live stream the following night. But this time, our counterattack began. First, a netizen raised a question. Willow's family is really rich, right? She's donated over 1 million to Makoto. I've been watching live streams for years, but I can barely afford to donate a few hundred. Forget fairness and justice, money was the real concern for netizens. The main reason people had believed Willow in the beginning was because she had played the poor, pitiful girl. Now, they realized they had been deceived. They had tried to help out of sympathy, but in the end, she was wealthier than they were. It was such an ironic joke. Willow and Makoto were still basking in their victory, unaware that the tide had already begun to turn. So, when they went live for the third time, they were confronted with questions about her donations. Willow stammered. Seeing her fail to answer directly, netizens immediately concluded that she had lied and faked her poverty to win sympathy. They demanded that she show proof of her transactions. Willow, now desperate, cried, "My family really has no money. All the donations to Makoto came from our demolition compensation. It was all we had. You're cyberbullying me. You're trying to drive me to my death." In her panic, she blurted out the truth. Anna and I had already set people up in the live stream chat, waiting for this moment. One person commented, "Didn't you say that your neighbor brother took all your money? How come now you're saying you donated it all to the streamer? You're just lying without even thinking." Another person said, "You said your brother took all your money, but now you're giving it to the streamer. Could it be that the lost child was actually blamed on your neighbor brother to cover for the streamer?" A third comment read, "Oh my God, how could someone like this exist? She slanders her neighbor, and now she's live streaming and making money off of it. I've seen her sell millions in one night." With the narrative starting to shift, the next developments were almost inevitable. Netizens began to boycott Willow, and those who had made purchases during her live streams rushed to return their items. Willow and Makoto not only failed to make any profit, but they also had to pay hefty fines to the merchants for breaching contracts. Chapter 9. At this moment, amidst the chaos, I released all of the chat logs between Willow and me. The records showed how Willow had angrily criticized Makoto for deceiving and hurting her, and how Makoto had beaten her so badly that she was bleeding, yet prevented her from going to the hospital. She wrote, "George, please come save me. If you don't come, I'm going to die here today. Makoto is not a good person. He just wants to steal my money and use me. I'm so scared. I want to run away. Why haven't you arrived yet? Hurry. I'm afraid he's going to kill me. I'm pregnant with his baby, and he doesn't care. He kicked me in the stomach. He's a devil." The truth was laid bare. With the prior build-up and these concrete pieces of evidence, Anna and I won a decisive victory online. Willow angrily called me, yelling, "You tricked me. Didn't you say the chat logs were all gone? How come you can still post them online? Do you know how much the netizens will curse me when they see this? Are you trying to ruin my life?" I replied, "Your life is already ruined. It deserves to be destroyed." I said this with a cold laugh and immediately hung up the phone. Willow's family came to my doorstep again, but this time, their attitude was completely different from before. No longer arrogant and domineering. Lou Mother said, "I've been thinking about it. The two kids grew up together, and we've known each other for so long. If they get together, they'll surely get along well, won't they?" Lou Mother flashed a fake smile and tried to chat with my mom, but my mom had been deeply hurt by what Lou Mother had said in front of everyone before, so she completely ignored her attempts at conversation. My mom nonchalantly replied, "The kids are grown up. They have their own thoughts. It's better for adults to stay out of it. Besides, Willow is pregnant with that influencer's child. Even though she lost it, the affection still remains. Let's not be the bad guys who break up a couple." Lou Mother's face turned sour. She furrowed her brows and said, "At that time, she was young and impulsive, but now Willow regrets it. She told me after thinking it through that George is the best for her, and she's willing to marry him. All you have to do is get George to clarify that everything he said before was just him being angry and making stuff up. If you do that, I'll let Willow marry your George. How does that sound?" But just then, an ant walking by interrupted. "Oh, Lou, your Willow is really something. She's got a golden edge, so valuable. She lies and slanders, gets cursed online, and now that she's been exposed, she's asking for help from others. I think Willow is nothing special, and you shouldn't be so arrogant." Lou Mother replied, "You don't understand. Willow and George have a strong foundation of feelings." I snapped back. Food can be eaten recklessly, but words cannot be spoken recklessly. There's no relationship there, and I'm planning to sue her for defamation. Let Willow wait for the court summons. With that, I kicked Willow's mother out of the house. At first, she stood at the door, yelling, but when I pulled out my phone and threatened to call the police, She quickly lost her bravado and had to leave, defeated once again. Chapter 10. At this point, Anna called me and asked, "Are you sure? Should we break in and check first?" I answered, "No, I've finally found a general location. If we rush in now, we'll alert them. Let's just call the police." Anna hesitated for a while, but eventually gritted her teeth and said, "All right, I'll trust you this time." Previously, Anna and I had discussed our plan to work together, and the condition was that Makoto had to be sent to prison so he'd never be able to harass her again. In reality, even if Anna weren't involved, I would have still brought Makoto to justice. In my past life, I snuck into Makoto's house, preparing for a final confrontation. I ended up discovering a large number of new women's clothes in his bedroom. I suspected that Makoto had imprisoned someone, and worse, I feared he had already acted on it. Over the past few days, I had been preparing for my retaliation against Makoto while secretly following him. Sure enough, I discovered that he would go to the suburbs every 2 days, mostly alone, though sometimes Willow would accompany him. I watched from a distance as he carried various supplies into a residential area, but I was too worried about being noticed, so I didn't follow him immediately. After some investigation, I found out that Makoto wasn't local and didn't have any relatives living in the suburbs. When I thought back to the women's clothes I'd found beside his pillow, I decided to take a risk. This was about someone's future. I couldn't afford to be careless. After calling the police, they were initially reluctant to open a case, given there was no concrete evidence. What's more, the conflict between Makoto and me had already gone viral online, so they considered my report to be just a form of retaliation. They strongly criticized me for misusing public power for personal gain. In the end, my determination, along with Anna showing up at the police station as Makoto's ex-girlfriend, claiming that Makoto had previously exhibited criminal tendencies and made suspicious statements, along with the photos I provided of him carrying supplies into the suburban area, convinced the police to finally take action. Chapter 11. The police followed Makoto all the way into the residential complex, and to my shock, he led them straight into the basement. I don't think I will ever forget that scene for as long as I live. In that filthy, neglected basement, there was a person locked inside. When he saw the police, Makoto's face changed, and he immediately turned to flee. But of course, he was no match for the officers, and was apprehended on the spot and taken to the station. Knowing that everything was exposed, Makoto immediately confessed everything in a hurry. He had established himself as the sensitive, understanding male persona when he became a streamer, which attracted girls to confide their pain to him. At first, he was indifferent and just brushed them off, but later, he met Willow. To show off her own maturity and understanding, she suggested he pick some naive girls from among those who confided in him and make them his concubines. Makoto was tempted, and that's how things escalated. When Willow was arrested, her story was entirely different. She insisted that it was Makoto who had planned to deceive others. She had initially wanted to call the police, but Makoto had threatened her, saying he would kill her if she did, so she had remained silent all this time. I had always thought that these two had an unbreakable bond, but when it came down to it, not only did they try to escape separately, they even started blaming each other. After the news broke, both Willow and Makoto were imprisoned. Angry netizens vandalized Willow's house, throwing paint and rotten vegetables at it. Willow's mother, unable to stand the humiliation, went outside to argue with people, and was slapped so hard that she fell to the ground, her forehead hitting the pavement. Though she was quickly treated at the hospital, the blow affected her nerves, and she now walks with a noticeable limp. Willow's father, who had never taken responsibility for anything, disappeared without a trace after taking all the money from the household, leaving only a note saying he was going to the city to work. While in prison, Willow attempted suicide several times, and kept demanding to see me. I agreed, intending to finally put an end to everything between us. But when I saw her, the first thing she said was, "You've been reborn, haven't you? You're doing this on purpose to ruin me, aren't you?" Chapter 12. So it seems she, too, had been reborn. I coldly stared at the hysterical Willow before me. Even now, at this low point, she still didn't see any of her own faults. She asked, "Why are you so selfish? Wasn't it good like last time? Didn't you love me? Why couldn't you sacrifice yourself for my happiness?" She rambled on about how things went smoothly for her in her past life, and how I coldly dragged everyone down to ruin in the end. She had only been reborn after her arrest. When she first realized she had been given a second chance at life, she was thrilled. But soon after, she found herself headed for prison, which was undoubtedly a huge blow to her. I said, "You chose to believe in a small-time streamer, and you chose to help him commit crimes. Everything you've done is your own fault. Even if I did nothing, you would have self-destructed eventually." Willow retorted, "No, you're lying. If it weren't for you, I would have been fine with Makoto. You ruined our happiness in both lives." She was utterly unrepentant. I replied, "The law may be slow, but it never misses its mark. Even without me, your illegal activities would have been exposed eventually. People like you don't deserve happiness. Once I finished, I didn't bother listening to any more of Willow's hysterics. I simply hung up the phone. Her remaining years would be spent in prison, forced to face the consequences. No, someone like her would never repent, but the punishment would be just as severe. As for me, I would be stepping into a brand new life.